McLaren haven't been used to looking second best of late, but nonetheless, Prost's title defence has started well, with 6 podium visits including 2 wins from the 8 starts so far. Keke Rosberg, on the other hand, seems to have struggled to find his feet, whether that's just settling in a new team, or that his scruff-of-the-neck driving style doesn't suit a car designed with the precise Prost in mind. The team are still working with their strategy of using practice and qualifying to hone the race setup, which, combined with their reliability and fuel efficiency, often sees them advancing up the field from a middling grid position. The season started brightly for Ken's boys, with 5th and 7th at Brundle and Streff in Rio, but they haven't been able to repeat the feat despite the introduction of the new 015 chassis from Monaco onwards. Martin Brundle's had the worst of the unreliability, while Streff has finished every race except for that lively fire at Paul Ricard. Certainly it's noticeable that Ligier and Lotus are doing much better with the same engine that Tyrrell are, whether that's just the failings of the chassis or a legacy of Ken Tyrrell's historically fraught relationship with Renault remains to be seen. The new FW11 chassis blew everyone away when it debuted at the end of 1985, winning the last 3 races of the season, and even Frank Williams' accident hasn't made any appreciable difference as he simply delegated everything to Patrick Head, who took over seamlessly. In terms of drivers, Mansell has looked the best so far, winning 3 and coming within a moustache hair of making it 4 in Spain, and some of Piquet's supporters are beginning to cry foul and accuse the British team of favouring Nigel when, in their opinion, double world champion Nelson should be number 1. Speaking of Piquet, Brabham's first season without him is not going very well. The striking skateboard Brabham has proved not to be a breakthrough. One major problem seems to be that the specially configured BMW turbo, canted to one side to lower the profile, has proved full of unforeseen problems. Just to twist the knife further, the death of Elio De Angelis in a testing accident seems to have knocked a lot of the fight out of the team, and the announcement by BMW that they're not interested in developing a normally aspirated racing engine and will pull out of F1 instead won't help either. And finally, rumours swirl that Bernie Ecclestone is losing interest in running a team, as his responsibilities as FOCA boss and holder of the sport's commercial rights take up more and more of his time. The Lotus 98T doesn't look as odd as the Brabham, but under the skin it's arguably much more revolutionary, and it's certainly working much better. Electronic engine management and fuel economy systems, ride height adjustment, water injection systems and many other gizmos have seen other teams muttering about legality, but nobody's actually challenged anything yet. Senna is the undoubted star, with 2 wins and 3 further podiums, while Johnny Dumfries is giving it a gallant go, but has only finished twice this year and hasn't scored a point yet. Under the circumstances, it's understandable, but it won't be doing his confidence any good. The little West German team might be well organised and decently funded, but are finding F1 harder than they might have expected. Palmer's 8th place in Detroit was encouraging, but reliability is still an issue, and recent announcements mean that the team's entire raison d'etre, showcasing and developing the Zaxpeed firm's own turbo engine, may well be about to become obsolete. Perhaps they will be an early convert to the new 3.5 litre formula and try and get ahead of the game. Another team with plenty of expertise and experience inside and outside the cockpit, but again one which is having problems making it all come together, and there are signs of strain showing. Internal politics at the Beatrice Food Company have led to a reduction in funding, the Ford V6 Turbo is still suffering teething troubles and looking down on power compared to its rivals, and again the Ford Company will be looking at the prospective turbo ban and wondering whether to continue spending money on development. At least the THL2 chassis is said to handle beautifully, so there's that. Arrows have had a pretty anonymous season so far, and are still persisting with last year's A8 chassis, while the A9 is apparently suffering all kinds of development woes. Despite Heine Marder's best efforts, the customer BMWs are down on power compared with the works units in the Brabham and Benetton cars, and while the team usually end up in the top 10 when they finish, they haven't scored yet, and the injuries to long-term driver and friend of the team Mark Seurer won't have helped their morale either. The debut season of the Benetton team has been one of promise rather than results so far, despite Berger's podium at Imola, but the car still isn't quite right. It has a lot of power coming from that BMW motor, but the chassis doesn't seem so good in the corners. Perhaps the run of high-speed circuits to come will improve the team's fortunes, but that will depend on reliability. Right now, the team are catching the eye more for their paint job than their results. If you see a Benetton scrapping on the TV, it's probably being driven by Berger, while Farby seems to have faded into the background rather. Another bad year for Azella, who don't seem to have any other kind, having largely been overtaken by Minardi and Zakspeed in qualifying, and have yet to see a checkered flag waved in their direction this year. The problems are the same as ever. The chassis is yet another development of the old 1983 vintage Alfa Romeo tub, mounting the bulky, thirsty and underpowered Alfa Romeo engine. The affordable and genial but unambitious Piercarlo Ghinzani and the rookie Alan Berg aren't the strongest driver lineup, though even Senna or Prost would struggle in this setup. Like their compatriots Azella, Minardi have really struggled this year and have yet to see the checkered flag. Expanding to 2 cars has doubled their chance of finishes, but also stretched their already meagre resources. Andrea de Cesaris is undoubtedly a decent driver, brings lots of Marlboro money, and has tamed some of his wilder instincts, but he's no patient test driver either, which is what the team needs right now. Nannini is hard to evaluate given the limitations of his machinery, but he hasn't been embarrassed by his teammate, which is a good sign. Well, they're not quite looking like race winners yet, but this is the best they've looked since the glory days of 1979 to 81. Ligier have become something of a French national team since the departure of the Renault Works team from the scene, and probably have their strongest driver lineup in years, with Arnoux and Lafitte both race winners and feeling they have something to prove to each other and the fans. Jolly Jacques at 43 is widely expected to retire at the end of the year, and there's a lot of discussion about upcoming French drivers who might take the seat. If Ligier are having a revival, Ferrari are having a slump. The F186 is reported to have the most powerful engine on the grid, but the chassis is clearly not right because it's both slow and unreliable. Alboreto and Johansson are both talented drivers, but apart from Johansson's podium in Belgium, they have disappointed so far. The team have posted 8 retirements from 16 starts and only scored on 4 occasions, with Johansson usually starting lower down, not that qualifying better has really helped Alboreto. Knowing Ferrari, they aren't going to let this go on for long, but Maranello often descends into political backbiting when things aren't going well. We'll see what happens.